Guys, what's going on? I hope you guys are well. I hope you guys are staying safe. I hope everything's good wherever you are. Guys, smash the like button on this video, hit the subscribe button, share the video. Guys, I will be doing a live later on. Leave your thoughts in the comment section. Hit the subscribe button, share the video. Guys, what's going on? Guys, I wanted to talk about Nacho Bearstein, is it? The great trainer, famously Manuel Marquez's trainer. You know, he said that Canelo lacks, boxing scene just reported an article, and he's basically saying that, you know, Canelo lacks a defining fight. Oh, by the way, I'm going to split this video into two. I'm going to talk about Khan working with Crawford and Canelo's, you know, lack of defining fights. Guys, I think Canelo Alvarez, he's in an era where there's not a lot of marquee fights. There's not a lot of names. Like, you know, Floyd, Pacquiao, they had a lot of great fighters around him. Look, Pacquiao had Marquez, Barrera, Morales. Then he had Miguel Cotto. You know, he had a lot of great fighters, great fighters. You know, Ricky Hatton, Oscar De La Hoya, Margarito. You know, the list goes on. You know, he fought Keith Thurman. He's fought so many great fighters. How many Hall of Fame fighters has Manny Pacquiao fought? How many Hall of Fame fighters has Mayweather fought? You know, they've just been blessed in their era where there were so many great fighters, but those two were a standout. The problem is with Canelo. Canelo hasn't got that. You know, Canelo had Gennady Golovkin, but, you know, apart from that, you know, there isn't a lot of great fighters, which, you know, is Canelo's got in around his era. And people look at it, and Nacho Bearstein looks at it and thinks, well, you know, he hasn't really got, you know, he lacks the defining fight. He lacks he's basically said that, you know, Canelo's fights haven't captured the heart of the audience. Now, I don't know what he means by that. Is he talking about the Mexican people? I think Nacho Bearstein is Mexican, I think. I'm not 100% sure, but I think he is. But is he talking about the people of Mexico? Because I remember Campos saying to me that, Imran, people in Mexico don't perceive Canelo the way the Mexican-American fan base perceive Canelo. So Nacho might be talking from a Mexican standpoint, which Campos was trying to explain to us on the live stream, that a lot of the Mexican-American fan base like Canelo very highly, and he's got a huge Mexican-American fan base, but how he's perceived in Mexico is a lot different to how he's perceived in America, and how the American Mexicans or the Americans may view him may be a lot different to what he's perceived in his home country, which is Mexico. So what does Canelo Alvarez have to do? I don't think there's much he can do. I think he needs to fight like most of the guys in his era, like Beterbiev, Bivol. But even those guys haven't got the name, and I think that's the problem. I don't think the fighters that he's got in his era aren't good. They just lack a big name. You know, they don't have the name that, you know, some of the fighters like a Cotto, for example, that Mayweather fought. You know, Canelo fought a Cotto, but Cotto was towards the back end of his career. Still, I thought that Cotto did really well, and he performed very well in that fight as well. Canelo was a bit too big and just too young and a bit too fresh for Cotto at that point. But who is there? And I think Beterbiev is that fight. But again, Beterbiev hasn't really got the name. Beterbiev isn't a mark, like, he isn't a huge name, but that would be an incredible win. But I think I have to disagree in the sense that there are fights out there for him. I just feel like people are setting the bar so high for Canelo that it's difficult for him to do. Like, what do they mean that he lacks a defining fight? Golovkin was a defining fight, but a lot of people think that Canelo didn't win that fight or win both those fights, which I find kind of bizarre. I thought he lost the first one. I thought he won the second one, and that needs to be respected, because let's not forget, let me refresh your memories. Canelo Alvarez was a underdog going into that Golovkin fight. You know, I believe the bookies had Golovkin winning by KO, if I'm not mistaken. You know, correct me if I'm wrong, but if I'm not mistaken, Canelo Alvarez was a bookie's underdog in that fight. So you've got to respect what Canelo's done by beating Golovkin and not getting knocked out by him, because that's what a lot of people thought. And Canelo's taken those challenges. Now, everybody wants Canelo to fight their favorite fighter. Everybody wants Canelo to fight Andrade, Bivol, Beterbiev, Charlo. He needs to fight everybody. I think he's beaten some good fighters as well, which, he doesn't seem to get credit for, because apparently they're from Europe and European fighters aren't that good, blah, blah, blah. But Nacho's got a point in the sense that there's not huge names in this era of Canelo. Unfortunately, he hasn't got the depth of talent that Mayweather and Pacquiao had. But still, the way Canelo's making up for that, he's going up and down weights. If he's already become undisputed, something that Mayweather and Pacquiao never did, and if he becomes undisputed at 175, which he's more than capable of doing, then he cements his name as one of the greatest. I don't think he's gonna. Will he be able to go past Mayweather and Pacquiao? I don't think history's gonna be kind to him in that way. Even if he's, goes on to become undisputed at 175 and he has a legitimate case, people are going to say, well, who did he beat? Who were those guys? Do you know what I mean? So I don't think history's going to be kind to him in the sense that, yeah, he may become undisputed, but I don't think, is he going to be able to win over the fans in the sense that a majority of the fans think he's better than Mayweather and Pacquiao? I think it's going to be very difficult, if I'm brutally honest, because those two kind of had an aura about them, and I just don't think the fans view Canelo, which is unfortunate because Canelo is a great fighter in his own right. I just don't think the fans view Canelo like a Mayweather or Pacquiao, which is unfair, because he's carving out his own legacy. He's creating his own legacy. He's doing what he has to do. But again, I just think sometimes some of the fans, they view a lot of the older they hold a lot of the older fighters in higher regard than they do with some of the younger guys doing their thing now. Maybe Canelo might be viewed differently in 20 years time. Generally when a fighter's fighting, they get a lot more criticism than when they're actually done, and people, look back and sit back and look at their career. So maybe Canelo will be one of those guys. You could make an argument that Mayweather and Pacquiao are definitely in the top 10 greatest fighters of all time. Will Canelo crack that? It's going to be, I think it's difficult because a lot of people, when people look back, people think Andre Ward would have beaten Canelo at 168. People think that Roy Jones would have beaten Canelo. They may well have done, but Canelo Alvarez started off at 154. He's a very small guy. He's moving up. He's dominating weight classes, which he shouldn't really be in the sense that, he's fighting a lot bigger men. A lot of the guys that he's fighting are a lot bigger than him. And the other thing is what I think a lot of people undermine, and I think when people talk about legacy and how great you are, I think this goes undervalued, because Canelo might not be as talented as Roy Jones. Canelo might not be as talented as a Floyd. Let's talk about Roy Jones. Roy Jones might be way more naturally talented than Canelo Alvarez. But what I think is underrated in sports in general and boxing is consistency. And that's why I give Floyd a lot of credit. Floyd stayed at the top for a very long time and he was consistent. And Canelo's the same. Canelo's been very consistent for a very long time. Tim Bradley mentioned that Canelo Alvarez has been on the pound for pound list for over nearly a decade now. That's unbelievable. That's unheard of. To be on the pound for pound list, and that's what we call consistency. That in itself makes you a great fighter and should put you higher on a all-time pound for pound list because of the consistency. Because sport, it's all right, okay, you can get to the top, but how long can you stay at the top? Canelo Alvarez has been at the top for ages now. And he's getting better and better and better and better. And I feel like that kind of consistency needs to be rewarded and needs to be respected, because very few fighters are able to get to the top and stay at the top for a very long period of time. And Canelo Alvarez is one of those rare breeds where he stayed at the top for a very long time, which I think needs to be respected and rewarded on these pound for pound lists. Yes, he may not be as talented and aesthetically pleasing as someone as Roy Jones, who was a phenomenon, really. You know, Roy Jones was a once in a generational kind of talent. But Roy Jones wasn't as consistent as Canelo. He didn't stay at the top for as long as Canelo. So yeah, Roy Jones may be a more gifted fighter than Saul Canelo Alvarez. But Canelo Alvarez, the fact that he stayed at the top for so long, right, and only lost to Floyd Mayweather, and stayed at the top and been performing at the top for a very long time, you know, that needs to be respected and that needs to be rewarded, you know, by the fans. Because how many fighters do you know that were able to stay at the top for this long? Very few. You know, guys look sensational. They get to the top of the pound for pound list. They stay there a couple years, they maybe fall off. Canelo's been consistent, and that, why that needs to be respected and rewarded on these lists and stuff. I'll tell you why. Because Canelo Alvarez has had to adjust his style. He's had to get better. Canelo Alvarez isn't a naturally gifted fighter. Canelo Alvarez has had to work at his game. He's had to improve a lot of his game to get to where he's at. He's not like a Messi. You know, Messi, like, and Ronaldo, for example. Canelo's like a Ronaldo. He's had to work his socks off. You know, he's not a... Canelo's like a machine. You know, he's got to where he's got to through hard work. Everyone, doesn't matter how naturally gifted you are, you have to work hard. That's obvious in sport. But Canelo's got where he's got to through sheer hard work. Because Canelo, when he fought Floyd, he was still a good fighter, but he was nowhere near the fighter he is today. He's got there. And when you saw Canelo first, yeah, he looked good. He was a good fighter. You could definitely see he had talent, but you didn't think that he was going to do what he's doing now. Do you know what I mean? And someone like Roy Jones was just a phenomenon. You saw him for the first time, you were like, oh my God. Like, there's a phenomenon. Like, what a fighter. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's just special. This guy's just so good. But Roy Jones, as he got older, he wasn't able to adapt. Like, yeah, the jumping up and down in weight classes didn't help. But as he got older, he wasn't really able to adjust his style. And Roy Jones was technically flawed. He wasn't technically the most sound fighter, but he was so naturally gifted and so athletically gifted that he almost looked unbeatable. Like, people looked at him and said, like, this guy's unbeatable. Do you see what I mean? Because he was so aesthetically pleasing to the eye. He was so gifted. People say that he was as close as you get to an unbeatable fighter when Roy was in his prime. But he wasn't able to adjust his style as he got older, something that Floyd and Canelo are able to do. Canelo's getting older, but Canelo, even as he gets older, because of his hard work and dedication and him constant improving and adjusting his style, right? Canelo is a very versatile fighter, hence why he's able to adjust himself, hence why he's able to now, he's improved in terms of fighting slick guys. Before he was not as, I wouldn't say poor, but he struggled. You could clearly see he struggled. Now he's got much better. I'm not saying he's perfect or he's become, that style is easy for him, but he's become much better at it. And the reason why he's become much better at it, because he works hard. He works at his game. His boxing IQ is at a very high level, where guys like Roy were just so naturally gifted. They were so naturally talented, but they weren't able to adjust their style. David Haye was a little bit like that. Even when they got older, they were still fighting that. They were still trying to fight how they were when they were 23, 24, when they were at their athletic, when they were at their athletic peak, you know. And unfortunately, your body doesn't do what it could do when you were younger. But Roy wasn't really able to adjust his style, hence why he got knocked out a lot. Whereas Canelo Alvarez, he's adjusted. And look at the things that Canelo's added to his game. His defense. So hard to hit. You can't hit him. His head movement is unbelievable. His feet have become more educated. They weren't as educated when he was younger. So he's improving and getting better. That's why you're seeing him improve. because Canelo is man-made. He's worked so hard to get where he's got to. Roy Jones was very naturally way more naturally gifted. You know, and that's why you've got to respect people like Canelo Alvarez and Floyd Mayweather, because they've adjusted and improved their style. And that needs to be respected. But yeah, that's my take on that. I want to talk about the Crawford and Khan. It looks like Amir Khan is training with Terence Bud Crawford for that Brook fight. A lot of people have reacted to the social media post that was put out of Khan, you know, training with Crawford, and a lot of people were saying Amir Khan looks really slow. You know what? I've been worrying about that as well. I've been seeing a few videos, and Amir Khan doesn't look that great in those videos. He looks quite slow. He looks kind of flat-footed a little bit, which he's not known for. So the videos are concerning, but then again, we don't know whether that's a ploy to make it look like he's not the fighter he was, and then on fight night surprise everybody, or maybe it's just the fact that he had a hard training session, he was exhausted, and you know, he was just doing pads with Terence Crawford at the end. Yeah, he doesn't look as quick, but we don't know. We don't know whether that was at the end of the session. So I do think that Amir Khan's gonna be the best he can possibly be. I am a little bit worried, if I'm honest with you. He hasn't fought for 3 years. He didn't look too good against Samuel Vargas, against Terence Crawford, even Billy Dibb. I am worried whether we may get a completely past it, shot to bit Amir Khan, which will be sad to see, because I think if that happens, if he hasn't got any speed, or I think he's gonna get beaten by Brook, because I still think Brook looked really good against Crawford. He just got caught with a beautiful punch, but that was Crawford, and Crawford's in his prime. I do think if Amir Khan even turns up 70% of what he was, I think he'll beat Kell Brook, because I just think that the speed will be too much for Kell Brook, and I think he'll catch Kell Brook and he could hurt him. And I do think Amir, and Dave Colwell mentioned this, that Amir Khan's going to also be the puncher in this fight. It's not just Kell Brook that's going to be the puncher in this fight, and I totally agree with him. Kell Brook is not the only puncher in this fight. Amir Khan is also the puncher now, because Kell Brook has looked really vulnerable. And there's a great chance that Amir Khan could easily knock out Kell Brook in this fight. Especially after what we saw against Terence Crawford. But yeah, if I'm honest with you, I don't know. And that's why I'm so torn. It's a 50-50 fight. I'm not making any predictions at this point. I think Khan, if he gets Brook in the first 4 or 5 rounds, I think, you know, he could win. I think if it goes past 5, I think Brook's definitely got the advantage. But then everyone sees it differently. Nobody really knows, because we don't really know what either guy's got, to be honest. We haven't really been seeing much footage of Kell Brook. Well, all the footage that we've been seeing is of Amir Khan. Amir Khan's putting that out there. Now, I don't understand why, because Kell Brook's not putting out any footage on the pads. Kell Brook's not putting out any footage, you know, of sparring, which Amir did as well. Is that, and to be honest, all the footage that has been put out by Amir Khan, he's not been looking great in any of those footages. So this is why, is it a ploy? Because all the footage I've seen of Amir Khan, I don't think he looks spectacular. Like even the footage he put out of the sparring video, where he looked pretty flat-footed and not that fast. But this is what I mean. I don't know whether that could have been the end of the training session where he's tired, or that could also be just a ploy, you know, to make Brook feel that he's looking terribly slow, and then on fight night completely shock him with his speed. Look, these are mind games. These have been played before. I'm pretty sure Brook isn't going to fall for that, and I'm pretty sure Brook's going to be preparing for the fastest and the best Amir Khan that's going to be there. So, if I'm honest with you, I don't know what we're going to get from either guy. I am more confident in terms of, I think we'll definitely get a very sharp Kell Brook. Kell Brook relies on timing. And what we saw of Kell Brook in 2020 in November, Kell Brook still looked pretty good. He was sharp, he was fast. I actually was surprised how fast Kell was. against Crawford. He was really fast. I think what really was eye-catching was the punch resistance. As soon as he got caught with a shot, he completely folded. You know, and that to me was definitely if you're a Brook fan, that's a concern, because for a guy to get knocked out the way he did to that punch was kind of like worrying, because, you know, Brook's always known for having pretty decent punch resistance, but you know, to get knocked out like that, you know, and for that punch to have that much of an impact, you know, yeah, if Khan, you'd have to think if Khan hits him with a right hand in that same area where Crawford caught Brook, you'd have to say, you know, it's gonna be interesting to see how Brook reacts to taking that. So I think only Fight Night will tell us all. I don't know right at this point. I do think, you know, Amir Khan taking this seriously in the Crawford camp, but I hope he doesn't overtrain, you know. I hope he doesn't, you know, because I know he's been working very hard and he's been pushed through the paces. I hope he doesn't overtrain where, you know, he's completely flat and, you know, in the fight. So, you know, he's got to be careful about that as well. You know, he's got to make sure that, you know, he doesn't overdo it, because he is 35 at the end of the day. You know, he's not a young man anymore. He's old. You know, in boxing terms, he's old, and he's had a very hard career, very tough career, very grueling career. So, you know, he needs to take time off as well. See, again, all of these things we just don't know. Like, we just don't know, because these could all be mind games, you know? These could all be mind games, the videos, the footage, because why would Amir Khan put out videos of himself looking really slow? Like surely he would be putting out videos where he's looking $1 million. And if you look at the videos that are being put out, he's like completely shattered in those videos. So you can tell that he's like, before that he had put in a serious session, because you can tell from the t-shirt that he was wearing. His t-shirt's like drenched in sweat. So obviously I'm pretty sure that they were towards the back end of that session. So again, I don't know at this point. I don't know. I think Fight Night will reveal it all. And I think this is a proper 50-50 for me. This could go either way. Either way, in the sense that I just don't know what either guy have got left. I don't know. I don't know, to be honest with you. I don't know. A lot of people are saying Khan. You know, some people are saying Brook. But I don't know. I generally don't know. And seeing those footages just confuse you even more, because you don't know whether he's completely past his best, or, you know, and we ain't seen anything from Brook, so we don't know. This is going to be interesting. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be nerve-wracking if you're a Khan fan or you're a Brook fan, because both sets of fans are going to want their fighter to win. But I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. It's going to be a cracking fight, and hopefully we get a good fight, you know, and may the best man win. Leave your thoughts in the comment section below, guys. Let me know what you think. And guys, remember to please like, share, subscribe to my channel. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.